Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Check, check. 1, 2, 3. Check, check. 1, 2, 3. It's the Josh Cast. I'm alone on the sea, and the mists are with me. I'm alone, can't you see? I have high levels of histamine, but I'm here for the Josh Cast. Oh. I don't know where that came from. Yes, I do. I know where that came from. Silliness. So my concern is that the last few episodes of this thing have been too silly, and that I'm not going deep enough. Do you mean to the Mariana Trench? You know what I mean. You know what I mean. I'm not going deep enough. And I have my runny nose. That's in the podcast. And I want to go deeper this time around. So my concern is about my bladder, which I've discussed at length. Probably, I don't know if any other podcast has covered the bladder as well as this podcast. Maybe that should be what the podcast is focused on. Bladders. Bladders and the people who hate them. But I went in and I had a cystoscopy. I think that's how you pronounce it. And they didn't find anything wrong. But I still have this situation where my flow is weak. And it's taking me 2 or 3 times to empty it. And the doctor's theory is that my bladder muscle is just not contracting enough, or it's spasming. And this is scary because, well, first of all, I'm afraid there is a bigger problem, and maybe he just hasn't found it. So I guess I'm to the point in my neuroses where even if the doctor says it's nothing, I don't believe him. I don't buy that, good sir. And so then my other question is, well, if it's just the bladder muscle is... And I asked him, well, is it because I'm getting older? And he said, you're not old. And I believe that is Dr. E's for I don't know what is causing this. So it's scary to be a medical enigma. I'm not in the... I don't like that. And so now I don't know what to make of it. Now, his assistant at one point was telling me that what this could be is that this could be an extension of the irritable bowel syndrome. And that it's connected with the bladder. So my IBS has exacerbated and now includes the bladder. So this is the bladder equivalent of IBS, is what I think he's saying. And what all arrows seem to point to is I have to let go of stress and relax and be calm. So I'm going to have this for the rest of my life. I have to accept that, I suppose. I also hate the way I'm talking right now because I feel like I'm giving a lecture. But this stems from my inner need to be at all times entertaining. And so I'm really trying to do a scary thing right now where I'm not necessarily trying to be entertaining. I'm trying to get at the truth and see if any humor will naturally arise out of this truthful place, as opposed to me kind of being silly. And not to say, by the way, that there's anything wrong with silliness. Silliness is fine. It's just not genetically part of my family. We don't do silly. We, slam into a wall and then complain about the medical procedures involved. That's how we get laughs. So now I'm kind of left to my own devices on this, because the doctor's solution, there's two options. I can go in and I can get a pacemaker installed in my bladder, which is not something I would want to do, frankly. I'd be concerned that there'd be a lot that could, first of all, it'd be very expensive. Second of all, I don't like the idea of I don't like the idea of any piece of technology in my body unless it's something that either that or I'm dead, like a heart pacemaker or something like that. If there's no other choice, fine. But if it's the difference between this and peeing more frequently, I would rather take the peeing more frequently. The other thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to ask my body, what are you trying to tell me? Because my body doesn't like to communicate in words. I wish it did. I wish it was just my bladder saying, hey, you need to not get stressed out so much. Could you do that for me? But no, it has to talk to me by spasming. So then I'm thinking, is there a way I can reverse it? But the scary thing is, what if there isn't? And what if it only gets worse? That's what really worries me right now, which is probably making it worse. The anxiety of worrying about it is what makes it worse. And then I'm down on myself because I'm thinking, well, I shouldn't, it could be worse, so I should be grateful for what I have. And I hate that. Be grateful for what you have. I hate being told that. I hate that. I hate when anyone ever posts, feeling so grateful today. I don't want to hear that. And I guess there's a part of me that is holding on to the bitterness and the depression and the anxiety. A big part of me, specifically the bladder. Why am I holding on to it, you ask? I think it feels, to me, depression and anxiety feel honest. And genuine happiness and hope and a positive attitude feels temporary. So depression and anxiety feels honest and ever present. And the Buddhists would say, well, it's all temporary. And I would say, how do you know? Depression might exist after we die. It might still be there. In fact, I'm beginning to think the entire universe, it's not made up of waves or particles. None of that. I think it is made up of depression. I think that's the force. When Luke says use the force, I think he has to get depressed, and then he clues in, or he gets into the general depression. And then from that, he makes the bad guys around him depressed, and that causes them to not be as good at their job, and their bladders get bad, and then he saves the day. That's how I think Star Wars really works. Science. I find that it's interesting. There's certain parts of LA where people are just not into the crosswalks. Maybe they use them, maybe they don't. They just walk across the street at any point. And, it's the onus is on us as motorists. It's our choice, I guess. And I wonder if these people as well are suffering from depression. And their thought is, you know what? I could use the vacation of being hit by a car. So then the question is, well, what do I do now? Is it a diet thing? I have a feeling. I was worried that it might be related to the sugar, but I have a feeling it's not a diet thing. I have a feeling it's stress. That's really what I think it is. So if that's the case, the only solution is I have to somehow relax. I think the other fallacy that I'm operating under, and it is a fallacy, I'm trying to tell myself this, is that I can't be effective at anything unless I get stressed out about it. And that if I make a mistake, I have to go through the steps of feeling stressed and guilty and get forgiveness from an authority figure. That's that's the pattern that I go through. Instead of fixing the problem and then not being so attached to it. In other words, instead of beating myself up for not being a good person, perhaps I should just be a good person. There's a thought. There's a definite thought. See, we're really making a lot of progress today, I think. Well, so that's happening. Parents are getting older. That's the other one that's worrying me. Parents are getting older. The parents are getting older. Dad's got a problem with the hip. They got to go check the hip. And again, we're not the family that goes, okay, he's got a little bit of hip pain, so we're going to go check it out, no problem. That's what we say to other people. Yeah, he's got a little bit of hip pain, we're going to check it out, no problem. Internally, we're immediately jumping to heart disease, cancer. Is there a bomb? Someone put a bomb in his hip. Who did that? I knew it. We're Jews. We're always hated no matter where we go. It was a Nazi, wasn't it? A Nazi put a bomb in his hip. And then we go and we get the x-ray and, oh, well, it's a minor fracture, no big deal. Okay, great. And we'll say, okay, great, this time we're okay for now. Maybe my parents don't do that. Maybe I do that. I have a feeling they do it too. Because where do you think I learned it from? So I'm worried about them. That's a concern. Definite concern. And overall, I feel like if I was rich, I could be more useful to my parents. So I'm down on myself for that. That if I had gone and, become a doctor or a lawyer or something, made a bunch of money, then I could be useful to them. But I am not useful in my current capacity as the... Can I also say, by the way, that I think 90% of the jobs in America right now is, you call the job whatever you want. The real name for it is people pleaser. That's really the job. There's very few jobs where you get paid to tell someone to get the hell out of my office. So I'm a professional people pleaser. And I don't make enough money in that capacity to help them. But maybe what everyone tells me is it's not my responsibility to help them per se. And not what everyone tells me, because that's not true. Because I think culturally, not only in my culture, but in a lot of cultures, you're supposed to help your parents. And in other cultures, it's fine for there to be, several generations in the same house, and everyone helps each other, and so on and so forth. And then those cultures learn about the cultures where you don't do that, and they go, boy, that seems like the better plan to me. Let's transition to that kind of culture. But yes, I don't feel like I make enough money to help them, so I feel guilty about that. And people tell me don't feel guilty about that, and I don't believe them. I say, thank you very much. I can handle my guilt. I've been managing my guilt successfully for 37 years, and I shall continue to do so in my own time and in my own way. Just drove by the dentist's office, need to go to the dentist. I've been putting that off. I need to not put that off. I hate going to the dentist. He's a nice dentist, great dentist. I just hate going. Another cost. But then I try to be philosophical about it, and with regard to my parents getting older, and with me getting older, and I just try to say to myself, well, that's just life. That's life. That is how life works. People, things, animals are born, they grow old, they die. That's part of the process. And I have to learn to accept that. I would rather not accept it. I would rather be bitter about it because, well, part of that's a family tradition. And also, it's just more fun, I would think. So again, I'm admitting that I am putting all of this emotional baggage on myself. Which is boring. I hate being mature. I hate maturity. I really do. I want to be immature. Can I be immature? Other people are immature. They don't even ask permission. The fact that I'm asking permission to be immature tells me I can never be immature. So what else am I worried about? Oh, I was listening to the Pete Holmes podcast yesterday, and he mentioned a statistic from a book saying that they've noticed that people who make $70,000 a year are happy, and everyone who makes under is depressed, and everyone who makes above is depressed. And here's the thing. Here's my response to that theory. I'm fine with the depression. I mean, I'm not fine with it, but I'll take it. I would rather be rich and depressed than poor and depressed. I mean, in some ways, the depression and the anxiety is freeing, because if I know no matter what happens to me, I'm going to be anxious and depressed, that fear that's one thing I don't need to be afraid of. Yeah, I'm going to be nervous and depressed no matter what I'm doing, no matter what's going on. But I would rather be nervous and depressed and rich. I would rather be shaking in my boots, but in a nice restaurant. I'm fine with that. I'm not looking for happiness. No interest in happiness. I don't believe in the hype of happiness. Forget it. Not at all interested. Not interested. Happiness is like the McRib. It comes, it goes, I have it. You know what? It's not as good as I remember it. Well, this certainly felt different. My fear is that the podcast is self-indulgent. But then I just need to remind myself that all podcasts are self-indulgence. That's why they are called podcasts.